Danny, I think a lot of the things you just mentioned are the right things. When you mention the parks and recreational assets that we have, the investments in, call it cultural tourism, investments in public art, and in kind of feeding the cultural diversity of the community, I think those are very sound investments whose payoff, you can't measure very easily all the time, but they help put the message out that this is a welcoming community and a diverse community. And when you're dealing with more information technology type businesses, that has a great appeal, I believe, to the type of employees that they're seeking, and you can confirm or deny that.
Absolutely, Ron. No, you're absolutely right.
So to that extent, that's a great thing for the city to keep doing. I think it's one of the core things that a local government can do. Right. So that we like. Now, when you get into other sectors, of course, it just depends on and really, and even in IT, it depends on the particular decision criteria that an employee, a potential employee, might have as his or her, main criteria for making a move, or a business will have the same things. But overall, I think they feed that general perception that this is a good place to live. So what you also want to make sure is that it's a good place to work. And toward that, really, I think the city's making great strides. And the areas where you should always just keep striving are in making sure that you have a very predictable, business-friendly kind of approval process. If you're wanting to open a new business here and you need a facility to do so, such as when you move downtown, what's the process for approvals there? How long will it take? How expensive may it be? How predictable is that outcome? At what level, what level of subjectivity is there at the staff level and in the public leader, kind of public arena in terms of any public meetings that need to be held? Because that's something that a business may look at and say, well, I can do this here or here. I'd much prefer to be here, but there may be criteria that lean the other way. The city has done an excellent job in assisting some technology businesses lately. Right. And so those types of programs, to the extent you can continue and increase the focus on those to hit the areas that are most important to technology companies, the capital expenses they need to make to expand, the workforce training expenses they will accrue because they're training employees for new equipment, or they're bringing in folks who don't, who need training to get into the workplace and start moving up. Sure. That's an area where I think the city can help out. And really, if you look from a geographic perspective, we have a lot of focus on our downtown environment, making it a very viable place. And so focusing those tools there is helpful as well.
I would add just a point to, I think these are all extremely valid points. One of the, I think, key things that we're looking at right now is how do we market Bloomington in terms of being a high-tech center. As we recruit from out of state, a lot of the questions we get asked is Bloomington. We didn't know that Bloomington had high tech, so how are we going to message that to the world and put Bloomington on the map in terms of high tech? Right. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, you talked about all the amenities, and yes, we agree with all of that. Typically, what we're also looking at, given the demographic of the employee that we hire, these tend to be folks that have families. They tend to have been in professional life maybe for a decade or so, and so they're looking for educational opportunities for their children, and how do those compare with other parts of the country. They are also looking at not only getting themselves placed, but often there's a spouse that needs to be placed as well. Mm-hmm. So the job market in general is very important in terms of being able to place that spouse into an appropriate job as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're looking at some of these things in the BTP, and how do we facilitate that?
It's interesting that you talk about that, because that's one of the things that sometimes people don't think about. So you've got these tech sector businesses that are flourishing, and and you start to look at, well, what are the reasons that they're able to have success here in the community? And then that's, I mean, me coming from a town that wasn't a college town, thinking about that, when somebody relocates here, is there enough employment to be able to sustain their spouse? Are there opportunities for their children to be in quality schools and amenities for their families? And that's one of the things that that the mayor has really focused on, has been, let's make sure that one of the biggest things that we can do to support these local businesses is make sure that Bloomington is a quality place to live, work, and play. And he's been hitting on that for a long time. And I think we're starting to see the benefits of that when you talk about homegrown companies that are able to either attract or retain quality talent here locally. Ari, Ron mentioned the move to downtown, so let's just skip ahead to that, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit, because a lot of your clients are not, or none of your clients are local, right?
Correct.
So you've got a lot of clients that are in other places. Some people would say, well, it would be more convenient for you to be elsewhere, closer to your clients, but you've chosen to stay, you've committed to Bloomington, you've made this your home. So what's the thought process going on there? And you outgrew your space, which is, congratulations, that's tremendously good news. Being able to find something downtown, staying right in the heart of everything that's going on. You even said you walked to the studio today. I mean, those are things that you don't see in a lot of places. Talk a little bit about your experience moving downtown, and and what your thought process was.
Well, to start with the thought process, the company was conceived of and built in Bloomington, so it's a Bloomington-based entrepreneurial company, and therefore we have a lot of roots here, both in terms of myself, I've been here for 20 years, as well as in terms of some of the key folks in the business who have been in Bloomington, some of them their whole lives. And so you don't undertake a question of a move lightly, because you are displacing a lot of folks. However, when we started to outgrow the space, we had to ask ourselves a few questions. First of all, what's the cost benefit of staying in Bloomington? Because as you pointed out, every one of our customers is not local to Bloomington. We're either on the East Coast, close to the Washington, D.C. area, for example, or close to large military facilities. And so the question was, does it make more sense to grow the business outside of the Bloomington area? In other words, either to move lock, stock, and barrel to a key hub, like the Virginia area or the DC area, and focus all of our energies there, or to open a satellite facility in one of these locations, maybe shrink down the Bloomington core group and really focus on growing close to the customer base. And we did a cost benefits analysis. And at first blush, it seemed that it was more cost effective to actually move out of town. But that's when we started to learn about some of the support and programs that the BEDC and the city and the state have put together to help local high-tech entrepreneurs grow.
Right.
And when we went through the new cost benefits analysis, it became clear that if we took the opportunity cost of the move, the friction in terms of lives displaced and personnel displaced, and we juxtapose that to the additional costs that we might have in recruiting, for example, because often we have to recruit out of state, and so there's recruiting fees, and you're flying folks from, various places around the country to Bloomington. We were able to make the case that both internally as well as to our investors, that staying in Bloomington was not only viable, it was the desirable course of action.
And Brian, you were extremely important to that process in terms of dealing with the city, letting the city know, hey, you've got this company here, we need to see what we can come up with. And talk a little bit, I guess both of you can speak to this, the process of, the abatement process, and how, or, going through the steps at the city, and how it's not always easy. Sometimes it's a lengthy process. There are a lot of people that are involved, but how that process moved from beginning to end, and now resulting in Ari being able to stay and the company being able to relocate downtown.
Sure. Well, first let me say